If you guys want to start things off and give your introductions, what got you into blockchain investing, and a little bit of history behind it.
Yeah, hi, thanks. So I'm Christophe de Courson, CEO and co-founder of ONM Capital. ONM Capital is a VC fund based in Luxembourg. First VC fund dedicated to blockchain in Luxembourg, registered by the CSSF, which is the regulator in Luxembourg. Launched 18 months ago, not in a good period, but we're still here. Yeah, we invest in blockchain-related companies, mostly in equity, but also sometimes in token, depending the deals. I jumped into blockchain and crypto in 2014 when I was in New York. First time I heard of it, and I created a US division called Agenic Group here in Europe, doing advisory and consultancy for banks, governments, stuff like this, and then ONM Capital.
I'm Matthew Kay with Blockhead Capital, a Los Angeles-based crypto hedge fund. We have a portfolio allocation that's 20% equity investments in network and infrastructural projects, and 80% allocation into highly liquid tokens, majority algorithmically traded. I started mining Bitcoin off a laptop in 2013 after reading some random article on the internet, and then the Ethereum smart contract pulled me down the rabbit's hole, and hundreds of hours later, I am still spending hundreds of hours on it.
Hi everyone, my name is Andrea Bonaceto. I'm the founding partner and CEO at Eterna Capital. Eterna Capital is an investment fund. We invest in blockchain projects, early stage, both token and equities. We are based here in London, but we are pretty much traveling always around. And I started investing in the space with the Ethereum layer. So when, like, during 2016, when all the different projects on Ethereum started developing, and we launched the fund around a year and a half ago.
Hey everyone, my name is Vays. I come from the traditional trading environment and Wall Street environment. I was on Wall Street building risk models, then I quit to just be a trader in the traditional markets. Got into Bitcoin around 2013, started public speaking in 2014, started a YouTube channel, did some investing in the crypto space in 2015. Wasn't the best timing, Bitcoin was still pretty cheap. But on the opposite side, I was very critical of Ethereum during its fundraise, and I remain critical of Ethereum, and I remained critical of the entire crypto space in general outside of Bitcoin. There's been some interesting projects in Bitcoin, but I haven't really seen much outside, so I'm going to be the skeptic on this panel to challenge some of the speakers.
Excellent. So an honor to be here with you gentlemen. Some serious funds, wallets on the stage here for the audience to listen to and get recommendations to shape your future actions. And, need to start with relevancy. Where mid-October 2019, Bitcoin just dropped below 8,000 USD today. Obviously a different change than this time in 2017. What do you think about the current landscape? How has your perspective changed? And ranging from blue chips to altcoins, what can you say about your investment strategies today versus 2 years ago?
Sure. The market paradigm has shifted significantly. Leverage is a huge part of this market. Algorithmic trading has always been a big part of this market, and it's even more so today. And going back to this theme of leverage, this market wound up and is still unwinding. And before the 2017 run-up, there really were no instruments to even short any of these currencies. So you have fundamental lines in the sand that have changed how capital is flowing and how price discovery is working.
I would say that, first of all, despite of the price going down over the past couple of years, pretty much if you take the peak, we have seen a lot of developments in the entire infrastructure around the blockchain industry. I think that's just something very positive to see. Then from an investment standpoint, we have seen that 2017 was a phase where pretty much, every project, even if they didn't need a blockchain, they were trying to use a blockchain and create their own token. And now they are definitely way more cautious, and we have seen a transition towards more equity, based deals. This doesn't mean we are not bullish on utility tokens. We think they are very interesting innovation. There are very clear use cases for that. But what we have observed is that sometimes companies, more recently, they decide to go for equity deals, and there are definitely more. And for us, it's quite relevant because our investment strategy is like a venture capital company, so we invest and then we hold for the long term.
Long holds.
It hasn't changed at all for me. Mostly throughout 2017, I had a presentation that was called The Inevitable ICO Bubble, where I compared all of this to the dot-coms, where you have websites that have no customers, no clients, just a fancy front end, and they were trading on the NASDAQ for $50, $100 a share. And I compared that to the companies in the ICO space all throughout 2018. I had the same presentation, just had a different title, Did the ICO Bubble Pop? I don't find any of the stuff that is currently done in the ICO space even needing a blockchain. And the stuff that they're building on top of the Ethereum blockchain, I don't find that to be very stable at all. So I questioned any project that was actually launching on Ethereum from a technological perspective, because they're launching on an insecure platform that can't scale, to their theoretical view of why do you need a blockchain. And I was very skeptical of that, and I tried to warn the retail sector not to get involved in this. Let the rich people lose their money with in this space. Stay out of it. But Ethereum made it so easy for the retail investor to invest in it, and I think we still have further to go on the downside, especially in the altcoin space.
Yeah, well, I kind of agree with you guys. I think there is a shift because we're talking a lot about crypto, but there is a technology, and we can notice some good projects. Sometimes it involves crypto, but not just to be listed somewhere and making money just on the volatility. So I think the crypto winter, as we call it, has been a very good thing because it washed away a lot of shitty coins. Shitty projects, bad investors. Also, the investors, individual investors, realized that it was a real job to invest and not just based on a white paper with a couple of advisors' heads shot on the document. And so now I think it's getting more and more professionalized, which is a good thing. There is still a high barrier for traditional investors to invest in blockchain because technically it's complicated to understand. It's completely global. And this is the reason why, actually, if you're not a VC blockchain global, I mean, you can't really invest in your domestic market. I mean, if I take in France, for example, last year you had just 80 different projects around blockchain. You're not going to dedicate a fund for this. And so it's still a niche thing. And I don't think it will stay like this forever. It reminds me, so you were talking about the bubble in 99, 2000, the dot-coms. I think it's exactly the same thing for funds, actually. So today we are a blockchain fund, but I remember that 20 years ago, you had some guy saying, I am an internet fund, because no one understood anything about it. It was just a .com website. And I think in 4 years from now, we will just invest in an IoT company, for example, using blockchain, and that's it. So I think there is the technology that is useful for a project, and there is this secondary market, which I think we don't care, because at the end of the day, it's just always the same. You can stay like this forever. It's always the same people buying and selling to the same people who understand what is going on. But there is no way that a family office will invest in any kind of coin listed on those platforms, Bitfinex, Binance, whatever, because they're not using the standard that they are used to in finance.
Excellent, excellent. And, you know, running funds, I imagine you guys have thousands of emails coming through your box, a lot of deal flow, or whatever channel you're using. I know as a marketing agency, they're always, projects are always asking us, how do we get in touch with investors? What is your evaluation process? Is it, you know, first hearing about it from people in your existing network? What are you then looking at as part of these type of opportunities? Obviously, it has to start with the technology and it has to be actual use for it. Moving on from there to the team, what are some of the key factors you're looking at as part of your due diligence? And what is the timeline from there on how you guys operate?
Well, so we receive a lot of projects. Actually, we need to be careful because a lot of scam, a lot of crazy project just because, like we were saying, just doing an ICO using blockchain to fundraise, which is not the case anymore. I mean, you're not going to raise 30 million just because you read a white paper now, and so we just receive the projects. Most of the time, we consider the project that's coming from people we know from our network, and we have to check if we have the time the project that gets in directly by email, LinkedIn, anything, but actually we don't really have the time to check everything. I mean, deeply, and then we really do due diligence. I'm saying this because in the blockchain space, I see a lot of investors doesn't do any due diligence. I mean, like any kind of VC tech fund or any fund, and I think it's very important, and we need to. And also for our clients, the idea is to address the fund not just for Bitcoin early adopters people, but to mainstream finance. Otherwise, we can't get at some point a mass adoption in the space, etc. So we need to have the same process than any kind of other funds. So it's pretty basic, actually. Like, I don't think that there is a specific thing because we are in the blockchain. It's just about the deal flow is not coming from your domestic market, from where you are. So you need to be global, I think, if you want to have the good decks. And so, as an example, last year we received 1,300 different projects. We did 125 analysis, deep analysis 30, we invest in 4. So, it's pretty thin.
Nothing to add.
Okay.
Which one? Okay, cool. For us, so on the deal sourcing perspective, of course, we receive always many emails, on projects pitching, and we do our best to look at everything we receive to ensure that we don't miss any potential opportunities. Then on a day-to-day, we are trying to expand our network as much as possible, mostly around nodes of talent. So for example, in the UK, in Europe, you have many high-profile universities, and good projects are likely to come out from research, very smart computing science students from these universities, same for the US and Asia as well. So we do have a global deal flow, and we tend to identify these nodes of talent, and as well then we have our own network, which is, in the end, even when you go to these kind of events, you end up meeting every time the same people, and if there is a good deal in the space, you want to know that before it's on the news, and we try to get that allocation as early as possible. Then, from how do we value deals, 3 of my colleagues, they used to work at BlackRock, so for us was really to try to bring to the blockchain space the asset management standards of a large corporate. That's why we took due diligence framework very seriously. We built the due diligence framework very thorough, and we have a certain set of metrics that we always look at each project, and then we just rank them. And then between the one that they rank high, then we go deeper in the due diligence phase and see where we want to deploy.
Yeah, I don't run a fund, so, but I do have a lot of people coming up to me and trying to pitch their projects, and I keep telling them, I don't invest and I don't promote, but people do want to pitch them, and usually I just question, why do you need a token? Why do you need a blockchain? What bothered me from the beginning is this notion that, well, if what looks like a security token doesn't give you any rights like a security, and we find some kind of use case inside of it as a utility, then I can avoid all regulation. And I think they're learning that that's actually not true.
Yes, this market is definitely getting rid of some of the shortcuts there. Great point. And really want to be able to package some of these insights for the audience. Is there anything that you could recommend that could be incorporated into portfolios here in terms of what can be shaped, maybe long term of some of the projects you guys are have a strong position in? Any type of recommendations that the attendees can take?
Can I start that one? So as a retail investor, I don't think the average person has the ability to do any kind of fundamental analysis on any project or a token or a coin, because you don't have that kind of time. You think you do, but you don't, because you probably have a job. So if you want to trade, if you want to be a trader, I know, well, you're a trader, we have an algorithmic fund. So if you're going to be a trader, then I think the best bet is to learn technical analysis and try to, catch trades, or you can hold a longer-term portfolio. But if you're going to have a longer-term portfolio, it's not about fundamental analysis. It's about what is legitimate and what isn't. Like for me in the crypto space, the only token in all of crypto that I am confident holding for the next 10 years is Bitcoin. Everything else, you can offer me 5 times more money right now, but I can't touch it for 10 years, but I can only hold it in any other project. I'm going to say, give me the Bitcoin, and I'll take, an 80% cut now. So that's just my advice for a retail investor. Now, if you want to invest in the space, find a qualified VC and you can give them your money. But it's not something I suggest, but it's better than you trying to pick winners and losers yourself. So that's my advice for the retail investor.
I just want to make some distinctions. There is token investing in which you believe that for whatever reason this token will accrue some sort of monetary value for some sort of technical innovation. It's a pretty insane investment thesis. There is the killer use case of these digitized assets, which is money, Bitcoin being the most investable. And then there are projects building that may or may not need tokens, that most likely need blockchain technology, and these are mainly equity investments. All 3 of these forms of investment are the same in that it's common sense investing. If it's equity, the business needs to be able to make more money than it spends. If it's a token that represents some sort of protocol, that token needs to somehow accrue value. And if you can't explain concretely why that token should accrue value, you're speculating. You're taking a very high-risk gamble. It's black and white. And third, the killer use case, money. Once again, you're speculating on a high-risk bet, especially if you're going to be holding for a long period of time, that this money, for some sort of fundamental reason, will maintain and accrue a greater monetary premium. If it doesn't make sense and if you can't explain it very quickly, it probably doesn't belong in your portfolio.
As part of this panel, I want to touch on AI as well, looking at the headlines. Are there any AI projects that are coming up that we should be on the lookout for? Is this something that you have any strong direction on in one side or the other?
I don't have any project.
I mean, I feel that AI and blockchain could be complementary to each other on many fronts. In terms of which, we had already a few projects that they tried to actually merge AI and blockchain. The thing is that now we'll need to see whether, if they will actually deliver what they promised to deliver in the initial, white papers. And I feel that that's in general a bit of a question, like an open question for all the projects, for many projects that launched over the past few years. So we'll need to see whether they're able to indeed fulfill what they were claiming they could achieve. So, I mean, myself, I'm advising an AI project called Singularity Net, and it's the one behind Sophia the robot. I don't know, you might be familiar with that. I think it's an interesting one, but there are for sure others that are basically trying to build a decentralized marketplace, so then you can then buy AIs from that specific marketplace. And because you know that machine learning algorithms, the more data you feed them, the faster they learn. By doing that, you can claim that everyone could pick that up, they could feed the information that they want, and the algorithm is going to learn faster compared to an AI that is just managed by Google, Amazon, and then they decide which verticals they should focus on, because now you can ask yourself why on Facebook, for instance, an AI is so good at recognizing faces, right? You don't even need to tag a person, the lady knows who that person is, right? But there are many other areas where they are not good at just because there is not direct economic interest for that specific large corporation to invest into that. But I feel that a more democratic AI framework could have AI focusing also on other areas that are very beneficial for societies, but maybe not an immediate need of a large corporation.
I'll just throw in a quick comment. I think the acronym AI has been totally diluted, like the word blockchain. The way people see blockchain, I say that, an Excel spreadsheet on a Google Doc will probably serve the same feature as what you call a blockchain. Same thing with AI. A lot of people just consider their computer program as an AI. And 90% of the things that people are claiming to be AI is just a computer program. There actually is no artificial intelligence there. I'm still waiting for an actual example of one that is. We'll see how long that takes. I have no idea when that's actually coming.
And what insights do you have for investors that have a heavier portfolio in other verticals? Maybe the traditional market, real estate, emerging verticals such as cannabis. I know some have had fear over the past year and a half around the security of their investments. A lot of headlines in the news about some of the dangers, some of the hacks. What are really the long-term potentials of cryptocurrency? How are you finding what's safer than some of the scams in the past? I know a lot of investors like to look for certain momentum, but they can often get involved too late. What does that timeline look like for you? But really, how can an investor from another vertical have more of a stronger sense of comfort participating in cryptocurrency?
I'll start, and then I'll pass my mic this way. Real quick. I still like the traditional stock market, especially the U.S. stock market and the S&P 500. I've been an S&P 500 bull for years, and I continue to be so, even though everyone keeps waiting for this crash that may come one day, but it's not going to take us down lower than the peak of 2008. So I still think that a diversified equity portfolio is a good investment for now. You can diversify that a little bit with some gold and some real estate, though I'm not that high in the real estate market. I don't think gold is ready to bottom yet, but it's looking like it's ready to go up a little bit. Not a big fan of the bond market. And adding Bitcoin to that portfolio is very critical, especially if you can hold it yourself with your own private key. It's the only unconfiscatable asset the world has ever seen. I think it has a lot of potential, and it's an uncorrelated asset to your current portfolio. You can also go down into sectors and start looking at sector rotations, and you can try to pick winning and losing sectors. I think that's something a retail investor could try and do better than picking individual names.
Yeah, I agree that the main element is the diversification element. So I would argue that even if you don't understand anything of crypto, blockchain, from a diversification standpoint, it makes sense to have at least a tiny drop into this space for the fact that it's uncorrelated and for the fact that the ups, sky's the limit. So we have already seen that the upside can be really meaningful even if you invest a relatively small amount. Then having said that, where do you deploy? I think it pretty much depends also on what you're doing, what's your skill set. If you want yourself to go and pick the winners, it's something very complex. First of all, as you mentioned, because the person might not have time, but also because the skill set needed is very technical. So you need to have a very strong grasp of the technology and understand actually what they are achieving, because someone on paper can say whatever they want, right? But then can they actually do it? I think that's the main question. So if you don't have that expertise, you could either delegate that to a professional investor, a professional fund that will do that for you and will take care about all the rest. Or you could also, go and buy something like Bitcoin and keep an allocation there. But then, you need to be very careful about how you deal, even if you own your private keys, to ensure that they are secure, right? Because I think the entire space still needs to improve a lot on that front.
Well, I won't advise to any retail investors to invest in crypto beside Bitcoin. I kind of agree with what have been said. Israel is very technical, and the thing is that, even us, we prefer equity, but even when we invest in a project, it's always in private sale, and you won't have the same kind of deal that we have. And even us, we still, if I have one like this every year, I'm very happy. And just because they want a name in it, and they want someone who can provide more than money, and not just, it doesn't matter the amount of money you're going to invest in it. At some point, they want something else, and especially when it's a good project and they are able to reach the good VCs with a name behind. They won't have any problem to raise money on the good project. But those projects, I mean, actually, when we invest in private sale a year ago, it was Dusk Network. No one has heard of it. They just listed in July, but no public sales, so it's very difficult. And then going on the market, I don't see the point. I don't see the point to trade on the market directly with a coin.
I think the first thing is education. I spend half of my time educating professional investors on what's happening, and 3 of the 4 of us have said it explicitly. If you're retail and you're trying to look at this space, it doesn't really make sense to try to invest or speculate in anything other than Bitcoin. If you want to do equity investments, you either need to be doing it full-time or having somebody do it on your behalf. Otherwise, you need to understand what the fundamental narratives are and what the fundamental use cases are, and to this day, there is still no better use case than money. Bitcoin exhibits the majority of the characteristics of money, while some are still shaping up whether or not it's a stable store of value or generally acceptable. Those things seem to be changing over time, but there is an academic and a fundamental argument. There's a 10-year track record, and if you don't have exposure to what is the first truly limited, finite digital money that's issued from a non-central authority, if you don't have exposure to that insane proposition for the first time since the discovery of gold as money, then you're really missing out, and I think you're lacking some bit of vision and might be drinking the global monetary system's Kool-Aid a little too much. The numbers really do show it's uncorrelated asset, so there are some strong arguments in favor for the money use case of crypto.
Excellent, excellent. I want to end with a quick speed question. Running an agency, we're always asked about case studies. Is there anything you could share in terms of performance of some of the, largest projects, largest returns you guys have seen, whether it was in your direct activities or something else? I know some of these are more public than others, of course, and you don't have to share anything, but only way to measure anything is with numbers, anything to share with the audience, even just benchmarks they should shoot for.
Well, I can talk about our numbers. Based on the investment we've done, our net asset value, it's quarterly. We are at 184% performances on the investments.
I think a properly managed Bitcoin trading strategy denominated in US dollars, you can expect somewhere between recently 300% return. It's easier to denominate in Bitcoin, in which case you can generally accept, I think, somewhere between 70 and 150% more Bitcoin generated through a strategy. I wouldn't look at anything pre-2018 to try to benchmark yourself.
Yeah, I mean, we tend not to, go and publicly share like these kind of numbers. I can say that we are quite happy ourselves about our first fund. And the thing is that in crypto is all about the time frame you take. So if you had 100 euros, 200 pounds, and you put that in Bitcoin 2010, I have hundreds of millions, right? So you have a crazy return, right? If you take me the period from the peak until now, is a very bad investment. So everyone is always trying to build a story by cherry picking data. That's the reality. So what I would say is that you should focus on good projects. And if you focus on good projects, returns would come just because in the end they will be used. So the key element is to have adoption, right? Not to speculate, on the very short term, right? If you want the entire industry to succeed.
Well, as an individual, prior to Bitcoin, of course, my best returns were simply holding the S&P 500 in my 401k retirement funds. Until I learned how to trade with technical analysis, and I spent a lot of time working on option spread strategies, and then I did well, but that took a lot of effort and a lot of studying. So a trader could outperform the market, but it becomes your new job. So other than that, I do believe going forward over the next 10 years, I do think Bitcoin will outperform all other assets over the next 10 to 15 year time period. Something new may come up that could outperform it, but anything that I see out there, I'd rather stay in Bitcoin.
Excellent, excellent. Can we get a hand for the panel, please?